understand Chinese Mandarin? Who doesn't understand Chinese Mandarin? That's not. No one? Okay. Um, the speaker sessions, they will be speaking in English. So I'll try to be maybe bilingual. So we'll get this one started. Um, I wanna do a real quick announcement before we actually start. This is our new Markham campus. It hasn't opened yet, and it will open next Wednesday. 就是下个星期三28号，这是我们真正的 grand opening。所以今天我们第一次用啊，所以你看到所有东西基本上都是 brand new。马路对面就是著名的 Univille 高中，这个好像是那个方向，对，那个方向，好像是那个方向，就是著名的 Univille 高中哈，欢迎大家来聊天啊，来这个到我们这个地方来做客哈。所以那今天我们就开始哈。今天我们请了5位今年的应届毕业生，然后都是我们的 LinkedKey 的学生，然后呢，今天在座的前面这4位都是我们藤校团的学生。那一会儿等一下还有一位Sarah，因为 Sarah 是加拿大国家辩论队啊，她今天有跟着国家队有比赛，所以她只能在线上加入我们，她可能稍微晚一点加入我们。那我们今天前面这5位都是我们藤校团的学生，所以我很快的先很快的开始，然后我大概可能说个3、5分钟，然后就Sylvia will go first, and Andy, Lydia, either Matthew or Sarah. OK, then we'll see. 那你们看到这个是我们的，给大家看几个我们藤校团的照片哈。哦，我把这个关一下哈。OK，可能这样看得清楚一点啊。这个是我们藤校团的照片，这个应该是2023年。right？ 2023年，然后你们能找到哪个是 Lydia 吗？这是 Lydia， 这是 Lydia， 但是我找半天没找到 Andy。Andy, you're supposed to be in this picture. You actually are. No, you are 100%. You are in this picture, but we just couldn't see you. Somewhere hiding somewhere around here, maybe. But there's a picture for you later.
Oh no.
Hey, this is you.
Oh,
This is you. 他跟 Lydia 他们2个是在一个团里啊。我们藤校团每年有2次，一次是在春假期间，一次是在暑假期间。那这个你能看到明显的是春假期间。我跟你讲，那年是我们最冷的一年，你们记得那年特别冷，就是还有那个 freezing rain 什么等等等等，所以那年是最冷的一年。这是我们的春假团，然后这是 Lydia。这是在 UPenn。Oh, this is MIT. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. This is MIT. Yeah, that's right. Remember this guy? Matthew and Robert. Robert is over there. Robert is over there. 那这张照片为什么拍的这张照片？因为这个我们在 Cornell， 对不对？因为这个 Cornell 的学生他是 UCC 毕业的，所以我们当时那个团里有3个 UCC 的学生跟他一起拍的照，就都是 UCC 的，当然除了我跟潘老师，他们3个都是 UCC。这个是 UCC 已经毕业的，在康奈尔大学读书的，然后当时 Matthew 是我们团里的，然后 Robert，然后这个小伙子还有，这是我们在耶鲁校园，我特意把耶鲁这张照片找出来了，所以 Matthew 在这里。这个是我们Sylvia 那一届 ，Sylvia， 这是 you，
No, okay.
这是在 Cornell， 这是在 Cornell， 这也是在康奈尔啊，我们Sylvia 在这里。然后我很快说一下啊，因为本来我今天不想我讲，本来是他们讲，但是有家长问我说，能不能讲一下美国本科申请跟加拿大、跟英国或者其他国家有什么区别？所以我就在他们分享所有的他们的每本申请的经验之前，我很快大概2分钟的时间跟大家说一下这几个国家的申请到底有什么区别哈。基本上是这样，所有的国家的申请呢， 主要有两件事儿，我们可以把它理解成有两个指标。第一个指标呢叫 academic rating，就是我们所有的这些跟学术跟学习相关的。那这个里面包括你的在校成绩 GPA，不管你是 AP 还是 IB 啊，然后包括你的在校的这种选课的难度，包括你的标化考试，包括像 SAT 或者 ACT 的成绩，所以跟学术跟学习相关的。这个我们叫 academic rating，我们管它叫 AR。那另外一部分呢，我们叫 personal rating，这个实际上就是所有的非学术类的都在这个第二个指标里面。那在第二个指标里面，它包含的内容就非常的多，它包括比如说 extracurricular，你的课外活动、你的课外竞赛、你的这些 award，你获得过哪些奖项，你在学校的这些activity involvement，比如说 school clubs 有没有什么 leadership，你的 social activities，你做没做过 research，有没有过 internship，然后最重要的其中还有一个环节就是你的 application essay，我们叫申请文书、老师的推荐信和面试，所以这个都是在第二大块。所有这些国家，他们的申请当中，其实区别在于这两个指标的权重是不一样，就是这个 weight 是不一样的。你像比如说我们中国基本上100%的权重都在第一个指标，对不对？我们的大学申请，我们的国内的基本上就是靠高考，所以高考就是一个学术指标，基本上就决定了你将来要上哪个学校。那加拿大也好，或者英国也好，基本上也都是在第一个指标上。英国有极少的学校会看你的第二个指标，但是给的权重也很低。加拿大多数学校基本上也都在第一个指标上，比如说最典型的 McGill，来，请进。比如说 McGill，我们知道 McGill 基本上只是看你的在校成绩，只是看你的 GPA 的。然后，多大基本上也是，滑铁卢基本上也是。那一些非常非常 competitive 的这些 program，他会看一些你的第二个指标，比如说滑铁卢的 CS，比如说 McMaster 的 Health Science 这些专业哈，就很热门，很这个竞争非常激烈这些专业，他会看一些第二个指标，但是第二个指标给的权重最多给到20%。80%还是在第一个指标。这里面唯一不同的是美国的学校，美国的学校，尤其美国这些头部大学，一会儿他们几个会讲。美国的学校基本上这两个指标是50对50，所以50% on your academics, 50% on personal or non-academics。所以如果我们的小孩，这个就涉及到我们的家长和我们的学生，在想给自己的做这种高中的规划的时候，你的重点应该往哪个地方去放？我应该怎么样去做这些规划哈？所以我今天就不我就不啰嗦太多了，所以我们就请我们的今天呢，我们这几位我们请来的这些 guest speakers，请他来给我们分享，因为他们的经验是最真实的，他们的经验是最新鲜的，因为他们刚刚毕业，马上要跨入大学的校门啊，这是今天我想说的第一件事情，就是每个国家之间的申请的区别。第二个事情，这两天出了一个大事儿，可能你们知道了。也有家长问我说：“你今天能不能聊两句你的看法？”哈，这个你们可能都知道了，就是川普又在搞事儿。那这个事情实际上也不是突然发生的，实际上前面是有一些这个线索的，就是最早其实它是跟哥伦比亚开始，哥伦比亚校园里面有一些反犹的示威等等。我们今年春假团的时候，这个潘老师啊、钟老师，我们一起带春假团的时候，我们到哥伦比亚校园里面，哥伦比亚校园跟所有学校都不一样，门卫是有门禁的，是有门禁的，就是我们不能进去的。当然，我们知道这个消息之后，我们做了很多准备工作。所以哥伦比亚校园你要想进去的话，你首先在网上申请一个那个 QR code，然后你要带着你所有的那些 photo ID 什么现场扫 QR code 验 photo ID 才让你进校园，因为里面有很多很多示威，各种各样的示威。就即便这么保安这么严格的情况下，校园里还是有示威。 当然，我们不去评论示威的正确与不正确啊，这是政治问题，我们今天不去讨论它。我们在讨论是说这个校园的安全问题。所以，川普政府上来说，你们不应该这样，你们校园里面不应该允许这么多这些示威的活动、反犹运动等等等等，甚至有一些对学生的一些暴力的倾向，有一些暴力的威胁。所以他说，你们这些大学的管理。你们应该根据我们政府的这些指引，跟着我们走，你们要 comply。所以一开始这个 pressure 是给到哥伦比亚，给到哥伦比亚，但是哥伦比亚基本上 concede，他们就 comply，说 OK，我 do it，所以就没问题了。然后来，然后这个事情就跑到 Harvard，Harvard 就没有 comply。Harvard 发了一个公开信，说我们有学术自由，我们要学术的 independence，你政府应该不应该干涉我们。所以当时这个事情就等于是他直接就呃 fight with the Trump government。那 Trump 做了2件事情，第一件事情把他的这个联邦的经费给他停掉了，大概25、26个亿美元的样子啊，2.5个 billion 的样子。把联邦经费停掉。第二个事情，取消掉了哈佛的免税资格，做了2件事情，实际上在财政上在给他施压，但是这个压力并没让哈佛屈服。哈佛又发了一封信，说我们还是要坚持我们的这种所谓的学术自由等等等等，然后又把川普政府告到法庭上。随后，川普就给了一个最后通牒，说4月30号之前，你们要按我的要求做，包括要提交所有的过往的这种在校园里面组织示威、组织反犹、有暴力的言行的所有的学生的这些记录给我们，同时要把你们的所有的招生办的招生记录提供给我，因为以前我们在讲这个叫 affirmative action，川普是不反对 affirmative action，他不认为应该做 affirmative action，因为 affirmative action 实际上来 affirmative action 实际上其实是对白人相对来讲是不利的。那他要求把招生办的这些所有的招生的这些记录，包括你们招生的这些所有的这些 log files，全部提交给政府。那哈佛也没有同意，所以给了一个最后通牒，4月3号之前说，你如果不按我的做，我就把你所有的留学生的资格全部拿掉，就是签证给你拿掉。结果到期哈佛没做，就把它拿掉。这个就是应该是前天，对不对？这就是前天发生的事情。但目前呢，就是昨天哈佛有一个紧急救济的一个诉讼，所以法官现在等于是把这个行政命令给挡住了，就是说你这个目前还没有问题。我们的国际学生，因为它影响的不仅仅是将要进入哈佛的学生，它影响的是现在已经就读的学生，也影响。他说，因为我拿掉你的 F1 签证，就是我们知道国际学生的学生签证 student visa，拿到 F1 之后，理论上来讲，你在美国停留你就是非法，你就不应该在美国停留。所以他给你的方法是说，你要转学，你要从哈佛转到其他学校去。昨天我看到香港大学还是香港城市大学说，我们欢迎哈佛学生来做题，来来来，你们来香港，我欢迎你们来，随便不用申请，直接来就行。但我来请进。但我说一下我自己的观点啊，我认为这个事情，我个人还是比较乐观，我一向是一个乐观主义者，因为我觉得我们这个社会还是应该是整体上来讲向好的方向、向良性的方向在发展。我觉得社会还是在进步当中，虽然中间会有一些这些 bump，会有一些 noise，会有一些噪音，但我认为整体啊，我相对来讲，我也相信美国的整体的体制的设计。我不认为这个体制会让某一个人就完全会摧毁掉，当然一定会有某种程度的 damage，但是我觉得他们之间应该会形成某种程度的一种妥协，就找到一种所谓的这种 compromise。川普的做法一向都是这种极限施压，极限施压之后，你看他对中国的关税一样，对吧？给你150%的关税，然后极限施压，然后嘣 要拿开了说，哎呀，不搞了，不搞了，好像在啊，我认为是这样的，就是他实际上这个对哈佛来说是压力极大的一件事情。你想这么多留学生会受影响，国际学生啊，我今天看到报道是说几个著名的人物，一个是丹麦的公主，还有一个是我们加拿大总理的女儿，Carney 的女儿。叫 Cleo Carney，他现在就在哈佛就读，所以他们都会受影响但我认为，我个人认为哈，这个事情我相信会有转缘。以过往的川普的做法，这个基本上他应该能找到这些逻辑了。另外一个，我不认为这件事情对我们这些学生，对我们的未来我们这些孩子们，你们将来的申请会产生过多的影响啊。大家我们觉得还是要看底层。还是要看它的体系，还是要看它的整个的这种规则的设计啊。总体来讲，我认为我还是比较乐观。好，那今天我们就开始，好不好？Let's start with Sylvia. Sylvia, you want to go first? Okay. All right.
Is this
So I'll get your PowerPoint. I'll get your slides. Give me a second.
okay? I just want to ask, am I supposed to talk into this or?
Yes, because we have online audiences.
Okay. Does it work? Like right now?
It works. It works.
Okay.
Give me a second. I'll get your slide.
Okay, I guess I'll also just introduce myself in the meantime. So I applied to Cornell early decision. My name is Sylvia, and I go to Branksome Hall. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's basically this independent school in Toronto. It's IB, and just to check, can everybody in this room hear me right now clearly, more or less? Okay, people in the back, you can hear me as well? Okay, amazing.
中间来帮我一下，你这个弄的是这个 share 到哪？你这 screen one、screen two 是啥东西？
Okay, and also just before we start, I wanted to do a little quick survey of the room. How many of you are parents? Just raise your hands. Okay, so we've got a lot of parents. How many of you are in grade 9? Grade 9, cool. We got a few. Grade 10? Grade 10, few. Like one person. Grade 11? Grade 11, cool. Grade 12? Grade 5. Okay, grade 5 is pretty early, but cool. It's cool that you got ambition. How many of you are younger than grade 9? Okay, a lot of people younger than grade 9. That's cool. So I'll try to make this presentation a little bit more targeted towards like the younger audience and also parents. But yeah, basically today what I'll be going through is just a little bit more about my school, my high school experience. I will be going through my advice for different grades and also what I thought about the Ivy League tour that LinkedKey hosts. And then finally, to wrap up, I'll do some grade by grade suggestions of what I think are some key things to hit in every grade in high school, assuming. And after that, we can have a short Q&A session. You can ask me questions that you want answered, and I'll try my best to answer them. But I will also note that I'm not an expert, so you should take these answers with a grain of salt. I might not always have the correct answer, but I will try my best. That's for sure. I will try my best.
Clipper 有没有可以发半张
Okay.
那我中间还是不对，你这个 screen 搁到哪儿去了？
Maybe
这 screen 还是原来那个 screen？
technical difficulties. Am I right? No. Well, it's definitely sharing now. Okay.
这不是我的啊，OK， very good.
Cool. So Yeah, I guess I'll officially start now, but welcome to my college application slideshow. Everybody can still hear me, I'm assuming. I'll just begin talking about my high school and my high school life. I went to Branksome Hall and I took the IB program, and I just wanted to share my experience with the IB program and talk about whether I would recommend it or not. For anyone who doesn't know, the IB stands for International Baccalaureate, and it's almost like, if you're familiar with AP, it's sort of like a European equivalent, you could say. It's definitely very challenging. It's like, I don't know a better analogy. Maybe like honors classes sort of, but it's sort of just this educational program that's often integrated into different high schools. And the goal of the IB is basically to raise kids and students to be globally minded, to be critical thinkers, and to have really good writing skills, definitely. In the IB, it is a program where, maybe a little bit unlike AP, there is a lot of writing involved. You have to do a lot of projects called internal assessments for 6 courses that you take, and there's a course you have to take called TOK, where you have to write an essay as well as an extended essay that you have to write, about 4,000 words. It's basically a thesis on any subject of your choosing. The IB, I would say, is a good program if your child really likes to learn, if they're really curious about these subjects and want to explore sort of like global nuances of these subjects. Where I wouldn't recommend it is if you're looking more so of like Canadian universities, really only, where grades sort of matter more, and your key priority is to maintain maybe like a high GPA, because the IB certainly is very challenging. I can definitely speak from personal experience. It's very challenging. So don't underestimate it, but it is absolutely an amazing program. It's um you'll anyways. My main activity was Model UN. I thought it was really fun, and I would say, like, in high school, having these public speaking sort of activities is pretty helpful in general. You get access to a pretty good community, and I don't know, it's like a very fun kind of activity to do in high school. You get to travel to places, you get to meet new people. Overall, I would strongly recommend sort of having these kinds of like speaking activities. And in terms of standardized tests, I took AP Calculus BC, and I also took the SAT. Even though a lot of colleges are sort of test optional nowadays, I think it's still a good thing to try and take the SAT if you can. Obviously, if it's inaccessible, then that's totally fine. But it's like a good experience to study for things, just to make sure that you have these like core competencies in terms of reading, literacy, mathematics. Anyways, I've definitely spent too much time on this introduction slide, so I'm going to move on to surviving high school, because high school can be a pretty scary place. But it doesn't have to be, because as long as you achieve these 3 things which I've listed out here, everything is going to be fine. So, high school, in terms of the social aspect, I would say what really matters is that you need to respect yourself, which means you have to be kind to yourself, but that also means you need to understand, like, what is actually your long-term goal, and what are some things that you're doing every day to try and like become that kind of person. And it's okay, because nobody is ever perfect. I've like procrastinated more times than I can count, but it's really good to just keep in touch with yourself. Like, am I like doing something that aligns with my values today? Like, maybe you had an argument with your friend and your value is emotional intelligence. Well, maybe, I don't know, you go make up that argument later on. Who knows? But more importantly, you need to respect other people and your teachers and your classmates, and not to be like a teacher's pet or anything, but seriously, like, don't don't talk bad about your teachers behind their backs. I think, even though you might think like now, oh, this teacher gives so much homework, blah 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 blah, it's totally normal for people to chat about that stuff and get carried away sometimes, right? You know, but I think that just having a good relationship with your teachers and trying to foster genuine connection is going to make your class experience a lot more positive. You're going to be much more happy. And, it's just a good thing to have good relationships with people in your school. speaking of school, because we're on this slide, we also need to focus on academics. And my biggest advice in order to do well in academics and have a good time is to try to love learning. You're not going to love every subject. That's why people have majors. That's why people focus on different things. But really, like, even if you really don't like math, just try to find a reason why math is important to you. Maybe you want to become like not an engineer. That's a really bad example. I don't know why I said that. Maybe you want to be like a artist in the future. Well, math is really important for art actually. When you paint things, when you do proportions and stuff, that's all geometry. When you look at like how to paint a shadow, you need to know where the light falls, you need to know vectors and angles. So maybe math is important in that respect. And thinking about it that way, opening these doors like to subjects and how they're interconnected with each other, because to a certain extent, all subjects kind of are arbitrarily grouped. Knowledge is kind of like fluid and whatnot. I don't know why I'm rambling about this, but yeah, like if you find these connections, you'll find yourself more naturally curious, you'll really like to learn, and you'll find it's so much easier to show up consistently to class, to pay attention, to have fun in school. And that kind of connects to my second point about being curious. Like when you're a kid, you're really curious about things, and when you're playing with your Legos, I don't know, like you're like, oh, what's this paint made out of? Kind of channel that energy into your studies, into your learning, and trust me, it'll be so much easier to study, especially if you have a lot of readings to do and a lot of these like sort of boring stuff. Really being invested in the subject and feeling like it has some value in your life, it's going to take you far. And finally, I have some points about mindset. These are kind of some mistakes I made early in my high school journey about self-worth. A lot of people tend to tie their self-worth to their accomplishments and I don't know what their SAT score is. I'm here to tell you that like just being alive and just being a human being means that you are deserving of like some base level of dignity and respect and self-love. And you don't have to do anything to warrant like all this like you don't have to do anything to warrant confidence and like belief in yourself. And I know that sounds like I stole that from like some Instagram gurus like 2015 page, but I'm serious. Like you really have to sometimes just tell yourself, um, I'm worthy of I'm worthy of like being confident. I'm just as worthy as other people of taking up some space and like speaking in spaces and being myself because the worst thing you can do to yourself is like hold you back because of your own like mentality and your own fears. But beyond that, I think another thing that's really important with like any application journey is to not fall for the bandwagon fallacy. This is the idea that like you just do whatever your friends are doing and you think it must be correct because all my friends are doing it. This is a trap because it can be really tempting to follow the crowd and do what other people are doing. But really, if you want to be happy, you really need to be true to yourself. You need to align with your own values. And I think it's also a key thing for your personality, which
哎
admission officers are looking for anyways.
，Max
You
怎么这么慢
want
的
to？be unique, show your identity, show that you're a human being. And
哦，爬成了。
what did I do? And with that being said, after
哎
all that yapping, I'm
我
gonna
正在听
about
爬
my
藤啊，
specifically
我在
the
听他们
LinkedKey
说。
Ivy League tour and how it specifically has impacted me. I
好，
think the
bye-bye.
biggest reason I joined was because it was in the summer. I was like looking
现
to
在谁在
have a
说
lot of to have a fun
是一个
experience while also being
刚
educated on
刚拿到
these
康奈尔大
these
学的，
universities, and this was a really good experience
这
in my
第一
opinion. I think that the big benefit of this tour is that it's a lot of fun because when you're looking at websites and researching schools sort of on the web, you can't really talk to people. You're sort of in your room all alone in the darkness at 3 a.m. doing who knows what. And it's not a super fun experience. So those kinds of things don't stick in your mind. But when you're having fun with your friends, when you're like doing karaoke on the bus, I think these memories will naturally get ingrained into your psyche, and that's going to help you a lot when you're trying to authentically talk about why you're interested in a certain school. So the other benefit that I wanted to talk about is LinkedKey has connections to students from Toronto. So it's a really good opportunity to just talk to and ask questions to people who have come from similar backgrounds to you. And that's why I would say this tour is definitely recommended if you have the time and it's accessible. Definitely a good thing to go to when you're in like grade 10 or grade 11 exploring universities. So finally, to wrap up, because I'm like talking way too much, here is some grade by grade advice that I've compiled. I think this is maybe like my most important slide. So if you want to take a screenshot or like a picture right now, feel free to do so. I would say that in grade 9, this is sort of the year where you're trying to like jump everywhere and figure yourself out. You want to fall, you want to fail in grade 9 because it's safe. It's safe to fail. And I think that in grade 9, you really don't know that much about yourself. You might think, I really want to major in computer science, but that might not be true like 2 months down the line. And if you don't take the time to explore yourself, if you just narrow yourself down, like put all your eggs in one basket, then you might end up being a little bit unhappy in the later years or very stressed out. So I would say in grade 9, it's definitely okay to branch out, take a lot of risks. And although I would never recommend this in like other like later years because your schoolwork starts to pile on, it's very okay to overcommit yourself a little bit. In grade 10, I would say this is a year you should start researching things, start understanding what different requirements are for different programs that you're interested in, and get all your requirements down. Because the last thing you want to happen is for those requirements to bog you down in grade 11 when you really want to be focusing on other things and your passions and what makes you happy. So for example, maybe talk to a school counselor if you have one about what's required for your graduation diploma, for your like if you need service hours or anything like that, and all your required courses for any programs you might be interested in. Finally, in grade 11, I would say the most important thing is to focus on your academics, make sure that because at the end of the day, universities are academic institutions. So even though everything else is important, you definitely do want to make sure that you're you're still raising your hand in class, you know, all those things. And it can be hard because senioritis, but it's fine. You guys are young. You'll figure it out. And also develop something that shows your identity, your personality, that demonstrates like basically that you're a human, that you're a fun person to be around, that you can make friends with people. And also be sure to research some universities you're interested in because all of them have a different personality of their own. Sometimes you might not fit every university, and that's totally fine. And my most important piece of advice, please, if you can, prioritize sleep. It's a common misconception that sleep is for the weak, that productive people and accomplished people don't sleep and they put all their time into studying. Please sleep if you can because it's such a bad thing for your long-term health if you skimp on your sleep, if you like I don't know, catch A's instead of Z's. I think that by sleeping more, you're showing that you really care about your health, you care about your long-term longevity. I don't know how to say this. Just get sleep, guys. Anyways, um yeah, in LinkedKey, I think LinkedKey is an amazing institution in general. I've been with LinkedKey for debate, math, and model UN, and it's a really good and ambitious and fun community. So definitely come here if you can. Thank you so much.
Okay, because Sylvia will have to leave early, we'll take some Q&As just for Sylvia. If you have any questions for Sylvia, or you might be interested in future applying Cornell, feel free to ask. Online as well. 我们线上的如果有问题的话，想问 Sylvia 或者关于 Cornell application，那你们现在可以先问好吗？因为他等一下他要走，他有其他的事情，我们让他今天先讲完，好不好？有没有问题 ？Any questions about Sylvia, Branson Hall, or Cornell? Go ahead. Go ahead.
For some of your most important activity, like your extra, not just the awards, but also the 10 other stuff.
Can you repeat his question first?
Yes. So to repeat the question in case anyone didn't hear, it was, what do I believe are some of my most important extracurricular activities? I would say my most important one is definitely Model UN, which might come, sorry guys, it's my timer, which might come as a surprise because my major that I intend to major in is more STEM oriented. And basically, I think I chose to focus on this in high school because it genuinely was my passion. I really did enjoy going to conferences and meeting new people and doing Model UN stuff because for some reason it just made me happy. I think that's kind of the key thing is like you don't necessarily have to go with what you think will impress an admissions officer because that's really no way to live life, right? Like an admissions officer is not your boss. There is no boss in life. You are the boss of your own life. So just do whatever makes you happy and make sure that you like go deep into the activity. Just like whatever is accessible to you, try to show like that you're really interested in it and you're not doing it for anyone else but yourself because you like this activity. In terms of like giving some details about what I actually did, I went to a couple conferences in Canada and also like in some other countries as well. And and I was like the sort of like the one of the presidents of my school club. But I mean, beyond that, like my activities were kind of like scattered all over the place. Like I think I wrote like I was fencing at some point, which that was like more of a minor activity, I would say. And I guess like um I guess like another activity I did a lot was math contests. I think that math contests are pretty important for just showing that you're interested in the subject. And even if you don't necessarily do good in the math contest, that's fine as well. I think what's more important is like consistency. Basically, I guess, sorry for taking up so much time, but like I guess what's most important is that with any activity you do, just show that you're consistent. You're showing up consistently, you're committed, and you're consistent. Anyways, any other questions?
Okay, we got a few questions from online. We'll take some online questions and then we'll come back here. Okay. So the first online question is, what is your SAT score? Have you done any AP courses?
Okay, this is a good question. So my SAT score was a 1580 and my AP AP course was AP Calculus BC, if that helps.
So you only took one AP
I only took one AP.
and you got a 5?
Yes.
She got a 5, which is a full score. All right. Can I take a look at the last slide? I think Mr. Jung has already answered this question. What were your supplementals? How did you differentiate yourself from the rest of the group? I believe the question was asking about your extracurricular supplemental. I think that's what they meant.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I answered this one like pretty extensively because I've been yapping my mouth out for the last 5 minutes. But basically, I would say that the way that I differentiated myself was not so much in my extracurriculars, but rather through my essay. I think that honestly, extracurriculars are kind of a hit and miss, you know, like there are so many applicants every single year. There's absolutely no way that like your club or whatever like you do is going to be like super impressive to whatever university you're applying to because there are so many people with the exact same extracurriculars every year. That being said, one of the ways you can show like your identity and your personality is through the essays. And this kind of goes back to my point about the Ivy League tour. When you have memories and you have experiences with social experience with friends that stick in your head, these things allow you to write essays with a lot more voice, with a lot more authenticity that reflects your humanity in these essays, which I believe is one of the most important parts because from an admissions officer point of view, you're kind of looking to fill your class not with like people with the best stats necessarily, although it's still important. You're looking to fill your class with people that will get along with each other and that have like things to bring, like who are human beings, who have personalities, who can make friends with people. So being able to show who you are in an essay, I think is the most important part.
Okay, so we'll quickly go through some other questions real quick. Looking back into your grade 7 and 8, do you think your path has been aligned throughout the journey?
I'm a little bit unsure what they mean by path. Like,
So I think what they meant is the stuff you did in grade 7 and 8 align with your major
Okay.
and align with your passion.
okay, that's a good question. Probably not, to be honest. I can't really remember what I was doing in grade 7. I don't know anyone who can. I was probably on Roblox, like playing High School Royale or something. I would say definitely not. Things change, and once you get into high school, like I said, in grade 9, that's really the year to get to know yourself a lot better, to get to know your identity, whether that's like academically, like what are you good at, what are your study skills, what like to get to know what you're interested in. And also, interests change over time, you know? I think you really can't set yourself up on a very strict path. You need to be okay with being flexible and kind of just let go of the idea that like you can control anything about yourself because you really can't, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, so there's another one. Okay, there's many questions in this one. Um, have you done any research and gotten published? What's your 5 awards in the Common App? What's your 5 activities? This is really a lot of details. What major did you apply for Cornell?
Just film what are my stats in like a YouTube video. Anyway, so in terms of research, I didn't do research. I think that if you do research, it's a really good thing. It shows that you're very passionate, but it's uh it's not necessarily like a end all be all if you don't have research. Um my 5 awards in the Common App, I'm gonna be honest, I really cannot remember. I do remember I had like a Scholastic Arts Award. I had some kind of math award and like Model UN. Um but the 5 awards, my advice for that is to choose something that is consistent with what you're telling uh in your like extracurriculars and your essays. You like the awards, I think it's kind of just to show that you're you're so committed to whatever your interests are that you're like you care about getting good scores, you care about doing well in it. I think that's more of the general vibe of why it's important. So pick awards that mean a lot to you. Pick awards that are like you don't want to be repetitive on your application, but you also want to pick things that are consistent with the brand that you're trying to create. Like if you're someone who wants to show like you're a very entrepreneurial person, maybe pick awards that relate to that kind of stuff. And 10 activities in the Common App. I don't think I have enough time to go into that, but again, my main one was my main one was Model UN. I had some like math on the side. I did like some coding stuff. There was like some sports. I didn't really talk about music because I quit piano in like grade 10. And what major did I apply to Cornell with? So I applied for computer science, and I hope that's helpful.
So what's your GPA?
Uh,
I think you talked about your IB scores, right?
I did not talk about my IB
You
scores.
did
So
not?
my GPA, it's like subject to change because the IB, uh, it is definitely subject to change. But the last like progress report that I got, I would say like my percent average was around 97 or 98.
Yeah. Pretty good, eh? This is a Cornell material. All right, so one last one from the online. How many service hours? I think they're talking about volunteer hours, and what are they related? Oh, there's one more. What's your summer activities? What have you done for your summers?
That's a good question. So service hours, I can't exactly remember because I finished them in like sort of grade 10, grade 11-ish, but um it was probably it was probably like around 40 or something. I think service hours are important because it shows like first of all, it's a requirement for your OSSD, which you need for like Canadian universities. But service hours, beyond that, it's kind of like a measure of did you do them or not? And then the second question is
Your summer arrangement.
summer arrangements. Okay. So summer arrangements is like it's kind of interesting because I think that they're talking about summer camps or like summer programs like the Yale Young Global Institute or stuff like that. I never really did any of that, which looking back maybe I should have, but I never did any of that because in the summers I mostly like focused on my own stuff and like what I like to do. Like I took a poetry class one summer because that was just interesting to me. And there was another summer I was like just cold emailing people to get internships anywhere. So yeah, that's kind of what I do every summer. I just do whatever I want to and whatever makes me happy. And yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. I think there's a one hand up. I saw one hand up. For Sylvia, right? No, you're good. You're good. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Sylvia. I'll take this one. Thank you. We'll keep in touch. All right. Yeah. All the best at Cornell.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Bye, Sylvia.
It's fine. I can be loud enough.
No, this is for online.
Oh.
This is not for here. This is for people
I
online to
just
hear
talk
you.
into this.
You can just, yeah.
Can you hum?
Yeah. Let me do it.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
All right.
Okay, so we'll get to Andy. Andy, you wanna go
Yeah.
introduce yourself first?
Okay. Like, yeah, I'll talk about my
So
stuff.
this is the clipper, page up and down here.
Okay, I'll talk about my stuff in a bit. I just want to say, I think a lot of people are really smart and they're really talented, and the U.S. admissions process is about demonstrating that you are really talented, even though a lot of people are. And I think from a lot of conversations I've had with other people applying, it's almost like a game where you're trying to make yourself look like you are the most talented, even though a lot of people might be, very talented. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what I tried to do. And then I'll give you guys some advice on how to make yourself seem like you have done the most. And hopefully my advice will be helpful to at least somebody. Okay. I kind of just took what I put in the comment app. So you guys can just look at my stats or whatever. I got a 1530 SAT. I also did the IB program, but I think she did a good job explaining what it was. It's a little bit funny. I took a pretty STEM heavy course load, but I'm applying for economics. And I also happen to do better in my STEM heavy course load. So maybe I didn't choose the best path for me, but I just thought it would be good, in the beginning when I chose my courses to be able to do everything. And then later, if, because for people who have STEM courses, and you're applying for like humanities majors, you've already taken like the relatively harder courses. So like my mindset was like, it might be a little harder, but I'll be able to choose between engineering programs and economic programs like later down the line. So that's why I did that. And in grade 10, because I didn't know how well I was going to do in the IB, I took a couple of AP classes and I didn't do fantastic. So didn't go into the IB program with the most confidence, but turned out all right. The IB is out of 45, but I only did 42 because they predict you out of 42. The other 3 marks are out of your TOK. That's a bit top. Okay, extracurriculars. So one thing I did was a lot of fundraising. Yeah, just took this off the Common App. Which was like a local fundraiser. So I'm from Oakville, and I did like a little bit of fundraising with the Oakville Youth Group. I thought this was pretty good because I didn't make myself like have like one specific kind of fundraiser that I was doing. So I had a little bit of freedom and creativity to do whatever kind of fundraising I wanted. So, like I do debate. I'll talk about that later. So I ran some debate tournaments and then like, whatever kind of fundraiser that I thought would be fun, I kind of just did it. So I had a little bit more freedom there. And I would say that I think for extracurriculars where you can kind of have a little bit more like freedom or it's a little bit more self-driven, they're quite good when you're talking about your essays because it gives you a little bit more of a personal perspective and you can kind of talk about both your motivations, but also the little things that you kind of do. Everybody like goes through school. Everybody has to take classes. So if you talk about how, like, oh, like the SAT, studying for the SAT was really hard. Like everyone experienced that. But if you have these kind of initiatives by yourself, I think it's easier to be able to say like I have a unique experience that I can write about. So I think that's broadly what those kinds of initiatives are good for. I did a lot of debate in high school, probably a little bit more than I should have. So I was a president of my school. And then LinkedKey also, they have a nonprofit debate club. If you guys do debate, come check it out. And I was the president or co-president for that club. I also did DECA, so I was the vice president at our school. DECA's really, really big at our school. We have like 500-600 kids. So you know, like it's pretty fun. I did a lot of sports in high school. So I did varsity swim. I'm playing varsity soccer right now. Yeah. I did a couple of internships as well. I'll be fully honest with you guys. Like, you're not gonna get an internship from like cold emailing or like, you know, like reaching out to I mean, like maybe some people do, but really like if you think about it, like you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old high schooler, you want to work at like some company that's going to give you real experience. The majority of these are going to come from like if you know somebody or like if your parents know somebody or if you can find somebody or, you know, like in some cases if you can pay somebody and like let them give you that experience. But I mean, that's how it's going to be even in university. So a lot of my friends are taking like unpaid internships because it is really hard for you if you have no experience to get those. So, you know, that's just the truth if you really want to, you know, have those kind of opportunities. So I was fortunate enough to like work with two. So one of them was like a accounting services company. So the lady who ran it she took her CPA with my mom. So, you know, I got a little bit of an advantage there. I'm telling you guys this because like truthfully, like use every connection you can, right? But basically, like I wrote some business plans, and they were like these immigrant businesses. And I thought this was a pretty good way, you know, in my essays, I kind of talked about why like helping these businesses in creative ways was something that I was interested in and, you know, how it sparked my academic interest. So working with a variety of different like cool businesses and like being able to do that. The second one was a little bit smaller, it was just over summer, but it was basically like a startup e-commerce platform with some university students from the University of Chicago. And I just worked on like some marketing, some brand, whatever work they were too lazy to do, they gave to us. But, you know, it was good experience working with like, you know, one of those companies. Our school had like these are kind of like, you know, whatever at the bottom. Our school has like another club, a finance club called Target Alpha. It's actually pretty good. I'll talk about like stuff like that later, but I was like the vice president at our school. And then just some stuff I kind of did for fun. I, Me and one of my friends, we're like we kind of like sports and stuff. So we made like an online sports jersey mark on Instagram where we like sold jerseys. I think I lost like $1,000 on that venture, and I have like probably like 25 just random sports jerseys in my house. But I thought it was something that was cool. I attended the Wharton Leadership in the Business World Summer Program last summer, so that was pretty fun. And then also like we recently ran like a TEDx event at White Oaks. I didn't put that event into my Common App, but you can still send updates throughout your grade 12 years. So that's kind of what I did. In terms of awards, so like I said, I did a lot of debate, probably way more than I should have. So like I probably have like 30 that I could choose from, but I ended up just putting 2. And the strategic reason for this when you're applying is because there's even if you have like 7 really, really impressive debate awards, it's not worth it to fill your debate award spots with 4 of those debate awards, even if they're better than your other awards, because you've already shown that you're good at debate, right? And so the idea is you want to show that you're good at multiple different things, which is why in the award section, even if some of them seem less impressive than maybe saying like, you know, like I did really well at the Stanford debate tournament and the Harvard debate tournament. They already know that you did well at one of the 2 tournaments, so there's no point in including more. And that's the way that I kind of approach it. So I only put 2. One was at Hart House, which is the UFT tournament, where I was the #1 team, and then Harvard last year, where I won that tournament. I did DECA as well, so I went to ICDC and I wrote that as one of my awards. Like I'll be honest, like I'm terrible at math, but I wanted to show that I was like, you know, like somewhat all right at math. So I put in like a Euclid like that's honestly not that impressive, guys, but I just wanted to show that like, you know, like that I could do math. And which is important for, you know, econ programs, stuff like that. So even though it's not as impressive as maybe some of my debate awards, I just wanted to show that like I wasn't a one-trick pony. And then the last one was in LBW. There was like a summer program, and basically you have to like make your own presentation, and then like they kind of rank you, like the judges kind of vote. this is not even like an official thing. You can't find anywhere. This is like you go to the summer program and like the award is like a water bottle or something. But a lot of really, really smart people go to that program, and it genuinely was like a tough like project for us to work on. And there were a lot of things, even in my essays, where they're like, well, did you have any conflicts with anybody? One of the conflicts I wrote about was with my group members, where like we couldn't figure out what to do for the project. So it's not the most impressive award. In fact, you can't even verify that I won it. But like it is something that shows that I can do something that I haven't already shown with my other things, which is why I decided to include that. Okay, things I would change. There's a lot of things I would love to change, but I kind of summarize it into 3. So the first is I kind of want to, I think it's like I said, a lot of people are really smart. I think, in fact, any person in this room, given the proper resources and proper opportunities, is probably good enough to go to an Ivy League school or like a really, really good school. The problem is not all of you will be able to figure out what profile you want to build and then look for those opportunities with sufficient time and then be able to spend enough time in those opportunities or positions to do and accomplish a lot that show that you are capable. So it's really about demonstrating that you're smart rather than saying like somebody is smart and somebody isn't smart, right? So the first thing in order to make sure that like you can build a profile is like make sure you know what you want to do earlier. And the reason this is really important isn't because it's like, oh, you have a lot of preparation, but it's because it takes a lot of time for you to accomplish things that you want to accomplish. So for example, I don't know if you guys know, like FBLA is a really big business, organization, right? And a lot of people are like, well, if you get a high level leadership position in that organization, then you can like use that, and that's a really, really good thing on your application. The problem with that is FBLA has a long process where you have to begin as like you have to first be part of their organization, and then you have to apply for like a smaller leadership position. Then from there, if you work well, then you get the opportunity to apply for a higher level organization. And you do that each year. That means you need to spend at least 3 years in order to have that leadership position in grade 12. So for me, it was already too late. When I wanted to apply in grade 11, everybody else who was applying were people who had, like they already worked in the organization as a smaller leadership position. So what I'm trying to say is, if you start earlier, it gives you more time to, for example, be able to take those different steps at each year because there's only so much you can do. Or, if you would just have more time to try and win an award in an activity, then, that's obviously better. The only thing I would say is like if you really like math and you just figure that out in like 9th or 10th grade, like it's over for you because like you got to start from like you're 6 years old at math. I don't know how the math kids do it. Okay. The second thing is there's so many opportunities for leadership and competitions. And again, because applying is like, you're trying to demonstrate that you are somebody who's capable of doing a lot of things. You want to be able to have really good positions and good competitions that look good. Now, these are not always ones that you just often hear about. And so what happened with me was like I did a lot of debate tournaments, and then like near the end of grade 11, I was like, wait, hang on, like there's a bunch of other different kinds of competitions, and there's like writing contests, there's like other leadership positions that I never really thought about, because I was so focused on winning all these debate awards that I thought was like the most important thing to me at the time because I really liked it, and they were like pretty hard to compete in. So I would say if you want to show that you are somebody who can win a lot of awards, to be more careful about researching different kinds of leadership positions, different kinds of competitions. And oftentimes, because not a lot of people know about these things, or even like there are a lot of people who know about them, like I think it's just good to have a wide variety of different things that you're doing. Hang on. Oh my. It's just good to have like a bunch of different things that you can apply for. You get way more opportunities rather than get stuck up on like, trying to win like a lot of one kind of award. Because again, I didn't even use them in my application, so it didn't even matter. So yeah, do research. Make sure you know all the different possible things you can apply to because there's so many, and like a lot of people don't even know about them, but colleges do really care a lot. And then the last thing is, this is specifically for essays, research a lot about the schools, because if you don't know, and I think that the Ivy League trip does help with this, but if you don't know why you want to go to a school and the only reason you're going to that school is because like they have a big name, like I think admissions officers broadly can like kind of like tell like, oh, like you went on their page and you kind of like looked for a professor, saw what they're researching, copied and pasted that in, and then said, I want to work on this, right? Make sure that you actually find certain things that really genuinely interest you, because then there's so much more to write about, right? If there's something that you did in high school that is exactly what that university is doing, and outside of the fact that they're a top 20 school or that they're a really big name, you would really be interested in participating in that program. Those are the things that the universities want you to kind of talk about in those essays. So don't make the same mistake as I did and apply to like 30 schools and just copy and paste what the researchers were doing at that school. Make sure you actually care about the research and yeah. Okay. About the tour. So the first thing was, I think you go along the East Coast and you go to all the schools. You can figure out a lot of preferences of what schools you like and what you don't. So the first part of that is physical location. You're going to be living there for 4 years. Like it might not seem like a big deal, like, oh, you're going to like really good school. But it might be in the middle of nowhere and it might be really cold. And even if it's a really good school, you know, that excitement only lasts about a month. And then afterwards, you have to live in a really cold place in the middle of nowhere for 4 years. So I think that's really good for you to figure out. The second thing is you do a lot of research about the different schools. So they made us like, you know, like split into groups and like have to research what each school was doing. And then you kind of have to talk about it. So you kind of learn about the academic culture and what it's like at those schools. So for example, when we went to Columbia, we were not allowed to talk in the library because there were a lot of people studying or there was like something going on. And or whereas, for example, and like, you know, they have like a very rigorous academic, you know, like I guess like academic course load and stuff like that. That's why I didn't apply to Columbia because I don't want to work. Well, I do want to work hard, but not that hard. Okay, so you can really learn a lot about schools that you wouldn't otherwise know, and I think that will help you determine what kind of school you're looking for in the future. And maybe you'll have to research more than just the 8 Ivy League schools, but I think it kind of helps you determine what you like and what you don't like. If like you didn't enjoy slipping all over the ice at like in Ithaca, then maybe Cornell isn't the school for you. Or like if you didn't like the fact that like Penn is a bunch of red bricks and it looks really ugly, then like maybe Penn isn't the school for you. But either way, you can kind of determine what you like. I think that's really good. The second thing is there's a lot of people who are really smart and a lot of people who are younger than you who are really smart. And there's a lot of people who are really driven and you can really see that drive. They make it almost like a little bit of a contest, they give out awards and stuff and like make you work like hard, like, oh, who can do the most research? Like, like, and you get a little prize. So you see the way that other people work hard, right? And maybe it's not in the context of like studying for school, but you do really see that there's a lot of kids, even ones who are a lot younger than you, who are really, really smart, who are really, really hardworking. And once you recognize that, like, hey, that's my competition, those are people applying from within the GTA that are going to be directly compared to me. I think it does help motivate you quite a lot. And the last thing is like, obviously, these are all smart kids. Maybe not all smart kids, but like a majority of them are all really, really smart. And I think they have a lot to offer. Meeting them, is really awesome. So, take the opportunity to become friends with those people. You never know how they, might come back into your life later. Okay, like, onto my advice. Okay, the first thing. It's really easy to look at somebody and their rewards and say like, wow, that was really, really good. They must have worked really hard. It's a lot harder to try to win that award yourself once you realize like it might have taken them 6 months, a year, even longer than that. And this is just my personal advice. I don't think that you should try to spread yourself thin when you're trying to work really hard towards winning one particular thing or doing really well on one thing. I think you should spend a lot of time on that one thing until you have achieved it, and then you can go work on other things. Now, obviously, this isn't true for like fundraising or like different leadership opportunities. But like for me, like when I was trying to win like debate tournaments, that's the only thing I was doing. I was apart from like obviously maintaining my schoolwork and stuff, but I really wasn't like working on like thinking about how I was going to win in DECA at the same time, right? I probably took like 8 weekends over one summer and went to like 10 tournaments. And like I think even like if you think about like studying for IB exams, those last 4 weeks right before exams, you're only studying for IB exams, and that's how you get really good at that. And I think as you spend more time on just one thing, you get progressively better at it way faster than if you spent the same amount of time but spread out over like a longer period of time. So if you really, really want to do something, spend a lot of time on it until you find success and then keep going. Don't just do it on the side because then you might never find success and it'll be too late. The second is you have way more time than you think, which is why the first is possible. So like a lot of people are like, well, there's so many things I need to do. So like I have to do all of these things at once. You have way more time than you think. So for example, like grade 11 IB exams, because our school splits IB exams into like the first and second half, like I studied more hours in a day than I thought was possible for me, right? Like I was in class studying, I was like in the car studying, we were like going to get food and like waiting in line and studying. And we went to Disneyland and I was studying in the lines at Disneyland. What I'm trying to say is like, and this is an analogy someone gave to me when I was a little kid, was like, it's almost like you're squeezing water out of a sponge, right? If you squeeze hard enough, there will be more water, unless you squeeze really, really hard. But the idea is that you have a lot of time, right? Even from like grade 10 to 11, we debated in the summer, like, there weren't tournaments maybe that weekend in Canada or even North America, but we found an online tournament that was happening in China or happening in somewhere in Asia. And then we got that practice. And then for example, like we debated against like I don't know, like, what was the team? I forget the team name, but it's like some national team. I forgot the country's name actually. Some national team, and then like you end up seeing that they come to like really really big tournaments, and now you've had experience debating against them, and you know what it's like, right? So you have way more time than you think, and you really should use all of it, which is why you can spend a lot of time on one thing and then spend a lot of time on another thing. And then the last, I feel like I've reiterated this a ton of times, but it's like a lot of people are really smart guys. And like just based on purely being smart is not a justification for any university to let you in, even if you are the smartest. And so the only way they can be fair is they can say, who has done the most to show me that they really are smart and has done the most to show me that they really are talented. And because there's so many opportunities for competitions, you really want to build that credibility. So even if the average person can do what you're doing in a leadership position, they haven't shown that they can do that. You have by being in that leadership position. So try to get those things. And again, because a lot of these things take a lot of time, start early on this. So just for me, because I kind of did business, some organizations that I thought were good. Target Alpha is a really good one. It's not too hard to get like a leadership position. And then once you get in, it's like, so the way it works is like, maybe you're like a small leader position or whatever, and you kind of have to work for like another person. You can kind of get close with them, right? And because you spend so much time with them throughout the year, they kind of like maybe they get lazy, they give you the work and they see, wow, you did the work really well. When they go on the next year to start picking people for their position, they're going to pick you 100%. And then the next year after that, you get like I don't know, like a CEO or whatever, like Target Alpha calls it, like their big top guy or whatever, right? So once you get that, it's really easy to work your way into those organizations if you have enough time. So start early. Another one is like FBLA. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. FBLA has the same thing where they have like different councils, like advisor councils. You can get on those. And then even like things like student council. Guys, if you get elected for student council one time and people actually genuinely like you, if you apply again, you'll become a student council, like, or like even like what they call student trustees nowadays. Like that's also a really good leadership position. The idea is you want to be in a large organization that gives you credibility outside of you giving yourself credibility. So maybe you have a passion project and you did a lot of leadership there. Anybody can start a passion project. Anybody can get their parents to donate money or whatever, right? But in a large organization, it seems almost like it's fair that like the organization is like some kind of standard. Everybody's applying to be in that organization the same. And so, try to like look for like broad organizations that like aren't self-created. And so that also gives you external credibility that says some other organization was able to help you a lot. And yeah, that's all I have. And I guess I can take questions at the end.
Thank you. Can I have that one?
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy. I have personally learned a lot from you. This is a pretty insightful. Yeah, thank you. We'll take questions at the end. Okay. Let's move on to Lydia. Lydia is going to attend Johns Hopkins. Many of you may have already known Johns Hopkins has the best health science, medical science program in the world. And Lydia is going to pursue her public health, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I had a chance to work with Lydia on her application essay. I can tell you her essay is one of the best. But I'll let Lydia to talk more about that one. I'll get your slides ready. Give me 1 second. go. Okay. You want to take this?
Yeah.
Good.
So I just click on. Okay.
Yep.
So hi everyone, my name is Lydia, and today I just want to talk a little bit about my journey of applying for Johns Hopkins, what led me to putting different stuffs in my application and also writing my essay. So here's a little bit about my high school life. I go to the Bishop Strong School, which is a school in Toronto, and I don't know if anyone knows, but basically I applied for Johns Hopkins University for public health studies because I'm very interested in healthcare and overall right after COVID, just knowing the prevalency of public health and the importance of finding these different policies in order to explore different resolutions for health is very important to me. And as a learner, I got to explore that a lot throughout my high school life. And I did a lot of stuff like in terms of extracurriculars, and I felt like I was someone who was less focused on one specific type of extracurricular or one specific field and more like exploring different fields. Like, for example, I'm the initiatives prefect on my school student council. I'm my school's ambassador. I'm on multiple sports team, cross country. I tried a lot of different sports team, volleyball, basketball, swimming, and I also am a competitive dancer outside of school, which took up the majority of my time and is one of the biggest extracurriculars that I do. And I volunteer a lot at senior retirement homes. And I do Model UN, host a debate, and I model, I MC. So it's like a very wide range of stuff that I do. And I do have a few published papers, and I've done a few internships. So let's talk about college apps. College apps, when you first approach them, is very scary, I'd say, because when I first started writing my essays, I was like, where do I start? How am I supposed to build this persona that I want to present to the college admission officers, which is all very important. And one of the biggest things that I realized is that everyone is doing a lot of cool stuff, like Andy said, and it's like everyone is extremely smart. So how do I make sure that I can stand out as Lydia, as someone who is passionate about public health, as someone who wants to do something in this field in the future and actually make a really big impact? And so for me, the thing that really became my quote hook was having something that was super personal to what my story tells the application admission officer. And that story for me was my nonprofit and being able to conduct the nonprofit because dementia is super personal to me and to my family, which is something that I focused on a lot on my research, on my internships, and also on my application and nonprofit, CCC. And because of that, that was like my goal and my passion, which I brought together. And I built a team, worked with a lot of students from over 4 countries, and hosted a lot of webinars with CCC and started a candle making business, which raised over $3,000 in stores. And I felt like this was really something that led to the center of my application and a bunch of other stuff that built around it. And it became the biggest part of it. I think. Okay. Now, if I could redo high school, there's definitely some stuff that I do differently or even reconsider. First, I would definitely start tracking stuff in general earlier because seriously, there's a lot of stuff that you need to be doing in high school, like log every club, every award, every little thing that you do. And that would have, in my opinion, really helped me out throughout my entire application process because when I was putting together my activities list, I was like trying to remember all of these things that I did. And sometimes I wouldn't be able to remember the specific number of awards that I won or which year I won that award, which would have been very helpful in my application activities list. And so really keeping track of all of these amazing stuff that you do is really important. And second of all, I would stop caring so much about college ranking, because I used to be very obsessed with it in general, because I would be checking Reddit, checking what other people thought about colleges that I wanted to apply to, and also nonstop refreshing on the ranking on US News. And that was just something that I was very interested in, rankings. But honestly, those numbers don't really matter if you yourself is miserable in that school. So what I mean by that is you find yourself in the wrong place because you're not the right fit for the school. So it's really important to know the academic environment, the student life, the opportunities, the location that the school is in, and if that fits you as a person, because I believe that it's really important to be able to take into account all of these, because all the universities that you're looking at in the US, they're very different from each other. For example, a school in California, USC, could have a drastically different student life, day-to-day life as Johns Hopkins, because they're in completely different areas in the States. And that is something that I believe should be more important than looking at these rankings of schools. And finally, I'd want to learn to say no to stuff, because in grade 10, I did say yes to everything. So obviously grade 9s and 10, it's very important to explore different areas and knowing what you really want to do. But also it's super important to be able to learn to say no and to manage your time and focus on stuff that you actually want to do, because I would enroll myself in every single sports team, every single club, every opportunity that was presented to me, but keeping track of everything and actually being able to be good in all of these different things was very difficult. And it wasn't completely like I was doing my best in every single one of them. It was more like jumping around, which doesn't really lead to the ultimate goal of doing what you are passionate about. And so especially in grades 9s and 10, like you need to stay in your comfort zone on what you want to do and what you think you can manage, because that is very important. And honestly, in grade 11, if you're still keeping a bunch of extracurriculars, you're going to be incredibly burnt out. And there's a lot of other stuff to focus on, like GPA, standardized testing. And so it's really important to allocate your time for stuff that you are really passionate about, or you really see yourself pursuing in the future too, even after college applications. Now I want to take some time to talk about how the LinkedKey Ivy tour journey really allowed me or helped me in the process of applying for university. So during this tour, we really got the opportunity to walk around the campus, see in person all of these amazing schools, and meeting alums and students that are already at these schools. They're already at these schools and have like experienced what school life is at the school, the specific school. And so I felt like getting to know like the vibe of each school is very important, because again, rankings do not tell the full story. It's very important to see for yourself if you can see yourself here in 2 years, in a year, or even staying at the school for 4 years is very important too. And some schools, for example, felt pretty intense and pretty competitive environment for me, and others were more chill. So it was just really feeling out the vibes of the different schools. And I started really asking myself during this tour, like, could I see myself attending this school? Could I see myself being the right fit at the school, instead of just, is this school in a top 10 ranking on the US News? And so that really made me shift in perspective and also look at the schools in a different perspective too. And I felt like it really changed how I approached my college applications and also college list that I ended up with. And I also made a lot of strong networkings and connections and also friendships on this trip that I found to come pretty useful to me, because every student that went on this trip, they were all very bright. They were all amazing students, and they live in the GTA. So I still talk oftentimes and ask questions to the students that were also on the Ivy League tour. And we were all bonding over the applications and also the process of it. So really these connections and these networking that you get to have on this tour was super important, as well as just asking questions to the students or alums guiding us through the tour was very helpful for me, because they knew what was going on at the specific school that they were attending. For example, we had an entire entire Q&A session with Cornell students, and I got to learn about niche stuff at Cornell that I wouldn't necessarily have found on the internet or from my own Google researches, and so that was super helpful for me. All right, so handling grade 10 and 11 is super difficult and can lead to a lot of lack of time management, lack of just not knowing if you have enough time to do everything. So I want to give you guys some tips on how I got through grades 10 and 11. And one of the most important thing that got me through grades 10 and 11 was living on my Google Calendar, like literally being on it 24/7, because I have everything on my Google Calendar, from meetings to like extracurriculars to what I have scheduled, and also events coming up, so I know my exact timing of when I should start stuff and when I should have it done by. And also just having all of my tests and assignments and blocks just in my Google Calendar was super important. For example, over here, I kind of took a screenshot of a week in my life, and it kind of shows when I can have some free time, when I can take care, like self-care day, when I can take some time off for myself and watch some Netflix, have some me time, and also when to finish everything by and plan that week ahead. And second, I got over my fear for not asking constantly for help, because there's so many resources around you. You really just got to look for them, and being able to find all of those resources, you will be a step above other people because you'll have that support that you didn't know that you'd have. And just using them and not being alone going through college apps and going through a busy time like high school is super important for both your mental, physical health, and also overall your persona, your application persona at the end in grade 12. And for example, I'd really suggest going to extra help sessions for specific courses that you're taking, or talking to teachers and saving some questions for them at the end of class, or like finding them over lunch and having a meeting with them is super important. And also recommendation letters, super important. Building that connection with your teachers, having that extra help time and connecting with them, not just as a student and a teacher relationship, but as friends, for example, is pretty important too. And that could lead to better recommendation letters and a more rounded option for you to choose from in terms of which teacher you want to write your recommendation letters for. And also just having support systems, which is so important throughout high school, because my friends, my mentors, even people I met through the LinkedKey tour, they are all super helpful to me, and I've learned so many things from them when things got a little more out of hand or harder at times. And grade 10 was my say yes to everything era, and I feel like grade 11 was when I really realized, like, okay, it's time to focus. It's time to focus on a specific area that I wanted to go to. And I picked like 2 to 3 things that really mattered to me, and I kept drilling deeper into these 2 to 3 things. And that led to me like focusing overall around, like, for example, public health. Like when the admission officer is looking at my persona, they think, oh, she is a fit student to learn public health, which is super important. And my LinkedKey experience in general. So I worked with Henry on my personal statement, which I felt like wouldn't have come to as, I wouldn't be as satisfied with it if I didn't have Henry's help, because I worked super hard. I switched my topic multiple times throughout the process of talking about my personal, like my topic on my personal statement. And I remember, I think it was like 1 to 2 weeks before the personal I had to like submit my first ever college app. I changed my topic. And that was very daunting, because I was like, it's not going to be as good as my old one because I worked for a longer period of time. But the end topic that I ended up with, I was very satisfied. I felt like it showed who I was in a situation where I had no control over everything. And it was also very different from what I think I'd usually write about. So I felt like that was a huge part of just putting together my application. And also the brainstorming section is very hard. Like, people think the writing process is hard, but the brainstorming actually, before even writing your personal statement is very challenging as well. And we also worked on organizing my activities list, which is also a very important part of my application because it was like, how do we rank this? How do I know, like, all of these things I've done that I'm super passionate about, which one do I put first? And that was also like a huge part of what we worked with. And it's also about strategy too. It's like the first thing that the admission officer is going to be looking at, what will that be? That will be the first impression that they'll have of you as a person, a student, and a potential future student at their school. Okay, now if I were to go back and give grade 9 Lydia some advice, here's what I'd say to her. First of all, you do not need to have it all figured out. You're allowed to change your mind, try new things, fail, and then try again. The important part is to just try again. You can fail as many times as you want, but being able to climb back up and learn from those failed experiences will make you a stronger applicant and will make you a stronger person in general. Second of all, choose impact over image. So what I mean by that is do things because you care about what you're doing and not because you're doing it because of someone else who told you to do it or because you think it'd be good for college application. And passion really shows. Admissions officer, they see tens and thousands of applications throughout the application season. They know if you're truly passionate about what you're doing and what you put onto your Common App. So they will know right away, oh, she or he is really passionate about what they're doing. And lastly, build yourself, not your resume. And yes, achievement does matter, but at the end of the day, what really matters is who you become through all of these experiences that you put yourself through. Like, who do you want to become as a person in the future? That is why you're doing this. You want to build yourself for your future career, for your future goals, for your future dreams. And that's what's so important, your values, your mindset, and your goal. That is pretty much all I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lydia. How's the presentation? Very impressive. Very good. So let me introduce Sarah. Sarah is she's not able to join us here today. She got a debate competition with Team Canada. She's part of Team Canada. Sarah, are you online?
Yeah, I can turn my camera on for sure.
Hey, Sarah. Okay, give me a second. Okay, Sarah, can you say something?
Yeah, am I audible?
Not loud enough. 1 second. I think the speaker is over there.
But again.
More volume. Okay, Sarah, can you say something again?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, we'll get Sarah started. Sarah is a again long-time LinkedKey student. I remember she came to LinkedKey when she was in grade 5 or 6. And she's an achiever. She has achieved a lot of stuff. She's a member of Team Canada debate. She has won the best delegate at Princeton Model UN. And she's also attending Weddell Secondary School in Oakville. I mean, when I worked with Sarah for during her application, every time I look at her application, I look at her profile, I got impressed. And if you look at the stuff, her school grade, her actual curricular achievements. So everything is pretty impressed. And Sarah is going to University of Pennsylvania, the Huntsman program. Just for your information, the Huntsman program is a dual degree program at UPenn. It's a dual degree offered by both International Relations and Wharton Business School. The program only accepts 45 students globally every year. 45 students only every year from the world. And Sarah is one of them. Okay, so without further ado, Sarah, it's your turn.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you guys for having me. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'll just share a little bit about my college application experience and like some advice. If you guys can move on to the next slide, that would be great. Okay, so I'll first share a little bit about like my context and my high school experience. So I obviously go to a public school that has an IB program, so White Oak Secondary School. The courses that I took were standard level French, math, and biology. And then for higher level, I took economics, geography, and English. I obviously do not know my full IB results, but last year, the exams that I did take, SL Math and SL Biology, I got 7s on those. So IB is ranked on a scale from 1 to 7 each grade. And then I was like predicted 45 out of 45 when I did my college applications. So I also did, I self-studied for some advanced placement courses. So I did macroeconomics, French, US history, world history, comparative government statistics, and US government. I did macroeconomics and French in grade 9. I did US history. Yeah, I did US history, US government in grade 10, and I think I did world history and comparative government in grade 11. And then for results, I got 5s on all of them except for statistics and ironically comparative government. But yeah, so those were kind of the results. And then for school club involvement, so I did a lot of debate throughout high school. I was like the co-president of my school's debate club. I did some DECA, but it wasn't really like a big part of my application. And then I also did like some ethics bowl tournaments in grade 11. So that was kind of an overview of what my high school experience was like. If we can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. So I'll talk about my college application highlights. So like what I thought like truthfully was most useful in getting me into colleges. So I think the first was definitely debate. So I was on Canada's national team for debate. I won like French nationals for debate. And I think that really helped, especially because the program I was applying for is a program that Huntsman requires you to have like a language you're interested in pursuing and studying for 4 years. So I think that kind of demonstrated my interest and ability in French. I will also flag that when I was at visiting day, I got an opportunity to speak with my like admissions officer, and she kind of identified me as like the person who's on Team Canada for debate. So I assume that played like a significant role in helping me stand out in my application. And also like I think UPenn does it for all students. Like they'll have your admissions officer write you like a little note via email. And like my admissions officer once again identified debate as like one of the things that stood out on my application. So I think that it's definitely just for college and for developing your character very useful. Secondly, I think my grades and academics were pretty strong. So like at the time of applying like grade 11, my average across all my subjects was like a 97.75. Again, like I had 5s on most of my AP exams, 7s on my IB exams, and my SAT was 1580. So I think that like my grades at least were not a weak part of my application. And then the last thing I think that was maybe a little bit useful was I did a bit of volunteering throughout high school. So the amount that I officially have submitted to my school is like 300. Like my school had this thing where they stopped tracking after 40 in grade 11. So I never submitted more after that. But I thought it was still useful, just like teaching children debate, other forms of community volunteering. It was generally quite useful to my both my like actual like application and also like the essays. So that's kind of what I thought was most impressive about my college application. If you can move on to the next slide, that'd be great. Yeah, so now I'll speak a little bit about like the grade 10 and grade 11 workload and advice that I can give you, I guess. So the first thing is I think when you choose courses, choose within your capacity. So I will say, like, again, I didn't really take any hard like STEM or math courses. That's because for me personally, like I knew that because to succeed in courses like HL Math, for instance, you have to spend a lot of time outside of school doing math. And quite frankly, with what I was interested in doing with my extracurriculars, I just wouldn't have the time to be doing a lot of contest math problems. So that's why I made the decision to not take HL Math, despite I don't think math being necessarily one of my weaker subjects. And I think the fact that I took courses like HL Geography also meant that it was a little bit more manageable when I did have to leave for debate tournaments, when I did have other extracurricular commitments. The second thing is I think like be wise with planning your time, because the truth is like a lot of people procrastinate. Like I definitely procrastinated and delayed a lot of tasks throughout high school. But I think if you know in advance, like even if you're not doing debate, like you have a math contest a particular day in a particular month, and you know you will not have time to study for school, I think just like planning studying for school in advance and like making sure that you plan these things around will help you succeed in both your extracurricular and academic attempts. And then my third piece of advice is like using resources. So for any of you guys like who are going into IB or do IB, I think Revision Village, it's this like resource or like looking at past IB exams was very useful for helping me study, because I found that sometimes the types of math problems that would come up on tests, they wouldn't necessarily teach us, but you can like self-study these things. So I think building that self-studying habit is very useful. But secondly, by using resources, I think it's also just useful to ask other people in your class, people who you might know who previously took these courses at your school. And this is also very helpful when you're applying to colleges as well, because in my college application experience, I got a lot of help and a lot of advice from some of the people who I knew who, went on to go to like UPenn or went on to go to some of these schools. And like similarly, when I was choosing my courses, I thought a little bit about whether or not I should take more math or more science courses. But after speaking with some people who, went to my school, went on to go to good colleges, they didn't find it necessary to take some of those courses. So that's ultimately how I ended up at my decision. And then the last thing I'll say for like managing, there's two more things I want to add for managing your course load. The next thing I'll say is like, this is maybe a little bit too late if you're already in grade 10 or already in high school, but if you have children who are, in elementary school, in middle school, one thing I found hugely, hugely beneficial to my high school workload experience was that I did a lot of French prior to high school, and I did a lot of like I finished like the high school mathematics curriculum before high school. And the reason why I think it's useful is oftentimes the two subjects with both me and my friends that take up the most time if you're not good at them is math and your language, because it's very, very hard to improve your language very suddenly. And similarly with mathematics, like you really need to spend a lot of time doing problems to understand the concepts. So I think if you can, and you have the resources to do math or do a language in advance, those are probably the two most useful subjects to like actually study in advance and just know about it. And then the last thing I'll say about your workload is I think it's important to know when it's okay to take losses. And by that, I mean, like, I think throughout my high school experience, I relatively successfully balanced like doing well academically and doing well extracurricular wise. But there are going to be times where you might have like a bunch of debate tournaments or a bunch of things coincide with your exam season. So for instance, like last year when I did Team Canada tryouts, it was actually like right after like I had IB exams, AP exams, which I took at a later date because I couldn't take them during my actual IB exams, and then tryouts like happened consecutively. And when things like that happen, like you're not going to do perfectly on everything most times. So I think it's important to know when you can't do a certain tournament or when you're going to do worse on a certain test, but to make those trade-offs ahead of time. So for instance, like throughout my grade 11 year, there were definitely debate tournaments that I just didn't do compared to like when I was in grade 10, because I had some tests that I needed to do well on, and I was okay letting some achievements go away from debate for that. And I think similarly, it's like the inverse. Like I think I successfully did well academically in high school, but I remember there was one time where after a really important debate tournament, I came back to school, I took a math test, that I did not study for at all. And IB has conversion. So I got a 30 raw on it, which meant that technically I got like a 70% on a test, which is not very great. But I think like if these things happen rarely, it's about knowing like when you value an award more or when you value your academics more, and being willing to accept that you will not be perfect at everything all the time and making those decisions for yourself. If you could go to the next slide, that'd be great. So I'll talk a little bit about my experiences with LinkedKey to end off. So as Henry mentioned, debate-wise, I obviously took courses at LinkedKey for several years, and it was like actually the first place that I ever took debate classes. So I think I started like it was either like end of grade 5 or early grade 6. It was like a very long time ago. And then something I'll also add is for Model UN, I obviously spent a lot more time on debate than Model UN specifically, but Model UN was still like a part of my application. So I worked as a teaching assistant at LinkedKey for Model UN. I still do, so that's one thing. I took courses for about a year, like on and off. Like it wasn't as consistent as debate, but I definitely did take courses for Model UN. And then as Henry flagged, I also competed at Princeton Model United Nations, where I got best delegate 2 years ago. Sorry, that was 2 years ago. The timeline is a little bit confusing for me now. But then I also helped out with like Oxford Model United Nations Canada. So it wasn't one of my like 10 activities because like at the time it's like something that just happened in grade 12. But I think it was generally still very useful to my application process and having experiences to speak on. So that's something else that I'll mention. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I assume you're doing questions at the end. So, but yeah, I hope that was useful.
So maybe I'll let him to talk about why he chose Yale over the other two. So Matthew, come over.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew. I go to Upper Canada College, which is a private boys' school in Toronto. We are also in the IB program. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But yeah, so this presentation, I'll be trying to summarize the 4 years of my high school in 15, 20 minutes, which points to how, you can't capture everything I've done in this little amount of time, but I'll try my best. All right. So let's talk about the numbers. My school was Upper Canada College. My IB predicted score was a 45. I took HL Math, HL English, HL Economics, SL Physics, French, and Global Politics. I was accepted to Yale in the early round. I applied to Yale restrictive early action. And then in the regular round, I was accepted to Princeton and Stanford. Maybe I'll spend a little time at the end talking about why I chose Yale. My intended majors include anthropology, sociology, and music, and I applied with various combinations of that to these 3 schools. Okay, so now that we've gotten the unimportant things out of the way, let's talk about my application. So my application can be divided into 3 main parts, the first of which is my involvement with Truth and Reconciliation. And for those of you that don't know, Truth and Reconciliation deals with advocacy with Indigenous peoples in Canada. So let me start with a little story about how I became involved with Truth and Reconciliation it all started in the summer of grade 9 when my school organized the trip to Vancouver. And I didn't know that this trip had an Indigenous focus at all. For me, it was just a time to have fun with my friends, which highlights the role of serendipity or 中文叫缘分 in my application. Yeah, because that's really how I got into all of this. It was my plan to just spend some time on vacation with my friends. But on that trip, we met with a lot of indigenous tribes and communities. One highlight was when we went into this forest and we saw a forest advocacy group who camped themselves on one of the roads in the forest so that logging trucks couldn't come and fell all the trees. That was very impactful for me because, you know, as an immigrant, I felt equally responsible for the damage that the Canadian government has caused to these peoples, and I wanted to, you know, do something about it. So when I came back, we were all, as participants of the trip, inducted into our school's Truth and Reconciliation Club. But everyone else left eventually because, you know, they didn't really care about this. But I did because I think if I didn't, then no one else would. And my school needed someone to advance this aspect of advocacy and pluralism, and I felt like that needed to be me. So in the Truth and Reconciliation Club, one of the biggest projects we worked on was a revision of our land acknowledgement. And this might seem familiar to people who go to school here. We do a land acknowledgement before our assemblies, before school events. We wanted to revise our own statement because it was too old in that it didn't have any commitment to action. It felt like an empty thank you, an empty apology. So we revised it. We really wanted to bring forth Indigenous voices in participating in this revision. And I wrote about this a lot in my school paper, and even did a mini research paper on, you know, what's the point of a land acknowledgement? Who is it for? And how can we make it better at educational institutions? The second part of my application has to do with piano. I've been playing piano since I was 4 years old, so it's been 13, 14 years. Piano is divided into two main parts for me. The first of which is personal achievements. I graduated from RCM a few years back. I did all my levels there. I've been performing at a few places around the world. I was invited to perform in Vienna at Mozart's residence. I've also performed at Carnegie Hall. And also I've participated in a few national and international competitions. The other side of music for me is tutoring and giving back to the community. I've been tutoring kids in private lessons for a few years, as well as partnering with my school's volunteer program called Horizons to give music appreciation lessons to neighboring public school children. And the third big strand of my application is DECA. I got into DECA, I think, in grade 10. I've competed in it for 2 years. And the second of which, in grade 11, I made ICDC and came 5th in my category. Almost entirely because my partner, Dennis Liu, is a national debater. So I got absolutely carried, but that's okay. And secondly, I'm also the head of my school's business club, and along with a few other friends who also did DECA with me over the years, we expanded our club to become the biggest in our school. Other involvements are just miscellaneous. They include things like organizing assemblies for the school. I was a school ambassador. I actually played a small role in our school's admission process for incoming students, and that was quite interesting. I was the arts captain for my school, participated in some sports teams, swimming, badminton. And then also in my grade 11 summer, I went to YYGS, Yale Young Global Scholars. This is Yale's summer program. I think this did absolutely have an impact on, you know, showing my interest to Yale as a school. And I'll talk about why I like Yale the best when I talk about Ivy Tour, maybe, which is, I think, next. Yes. So I went on the Ivy Tour the summer of grade 10, I believe. This is me and Liu Xiaozhao at Yale.
I was still young that time.
I don't think you look any different. Hopefully I look better than I did in that picture. But As you can see, the superstitious side of me thought to wear navy because that was Yale's school color. The same superstitious side of me also refrained from buying any Yale merch because it would be very embarrassing if you bought, to me at least, you bought a school's merch but didn't get in because you would never be able to wear it. So as a result, I now own no pieces of clothing from Yale, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's beside the point. The point is, I think this tour, the two biggest things it did for me, number one was that it solidified what I was looking for in a university. When I went to Yale, I realized that the number one thing about physical location that I searched for was a campus feel. I didn't like a university that was too sparse and had no sense of campus. I also didn't like a university that was right in the middle of a city and that blended into the city. I wanted to feel like I was on a campus in a university. I wanted it to have an enclosed kind of idea. That I only found that out by visiting these schools. And number two, I think in terms of other criteria I looked for in a school, I fell in love with Yale's style of architecture when I went there. Basically, I went to the rare books library and just couldn't keep walking. But so that actually, by the end of the trip, I had set Yale as my dream school. But I think the second important thing about this tour was that it wasn't as much of a confidence boost as it was a reality check. I remember the car ride back home when I returned from the trip. I was telling my dad, I don't think I'm meant for any of these schools. I don't think I'm good enough. Because when I went onto the info sessions, when I talked to the alumni who are at these schools, I felt such a gap between me and them. That was me in grade 10. So it made the challenge tangible for me. I knew what I was working towards, and I had a better idea of how far I was from my target. Other involvements with LinkedKey involve mainly public speaking clubs. I was in the debate system here for a while. And through that, I realized that I'm terrible at debate. But I only found that out, again, by participating in classes. I also trained a bit of DECA here, which definitely did help me and my partner, mainly my partner, succeed in competitions. All right, now my last slide are a few words of advice. 6 main points. The number one of which is academics. Because academics is the key to all your doors and to every school. One quote that I like telling my underclassmen is that if the classroom is where you see a concept for the first time, you are falling behind and you're going to struggle. And this is mainly true for math and STEM courses. You have to learn ahead, especially for math, because that saves you a lot of time when courses do start moving fast, especially if you take AP Calculus or IB Math at the higher level. Courses do move very fast, and you need to save that time for other things. And so what I did was, by learning math outside of school, by learning things before they showed up in the classroom, I could study for every math test the day before, and only the day before, and still do well. Number two is earning the respect of your teachers, and Lydia pointed to this. And I think earning the respect of your teachers is vastly more important than earning the respect of other students, because teachers unlock all your doors, not students. Many of us are vying for leadership positions like student council, like class president, like prefect. And I think those things are absolutely very important and very valuable leadership experiences. But lots of times you'll see that those elections turn into popularity contests. And admission officers know this. They know that the person who gets selected to be the president of your student council might not necessarily be the most talented or the most hardworking person, but maybe just the most popular. But if any position is elected by your teachers, then admissions officers know that those positions hold real value, because your teachers don't care about your popularity, your teachers care about your effort. So teachers are valuable for not only the positions they could give you, the awards they could give you, but also for things like recommendation letters, also for things like grades, because there's almost nothing more influential on your grade than when a teacher opens your essay document, sees that it's yours, and tells themselves, oh, this is probably getting a highest mark. Number three is time management. And I am also a massive victim of procrastination. I'm not ashamed to admit that, but time management is absolutely necessary because it prevents you from disappointing people. It prevents you from not having time to reflect on the feedback of your teachers when you have to hand something important in. For example, my extended essay, I did it well after the rough draft was due. And as a result, I did not have time to look at my teacher's feedback for me. And that directly impacts things like your grades. Number 4 is staying genuine. And this is absolutely important as well, in that never do something for the sake of it. Never do something for the sake of applying to a school. And a question I like to ask myself and ask all of you is that if I get into my dream school, would I keep doing this activity? And if the answer is no, then you have to think about, why am I doing it in the first place? And will admissions officers know that I'm doing it for a genuine reason? Number 5 is staying humble. And I wrote about this, I think, in one of my supplements, in that humility should be directly proportional to competence. Now, directly proportional is a very fancy physics term, but it just means that the more competent you are, the more humble you have to be. There is nothing that loses my respect in a person more than someone who thinks of themselves as somebody, even when they're not. And finally, I think the biggest advice is not to stress, because everything will fall into place with time. I don't think I really decided the direction with which I wanted to put in my application until second semester of grade 11, which is quite late. Before that, I was dabbling in this and this, but I didn't really know how to, put forth my personality. But eventually, everything fell into place. 中文有一个词儿叫水到渠成, which I think meant a lot to me because I think yeah, everything takes time, and not everything, you're not going to figure out everything really early on and really decidedly, but with time you're going to figure everything out. So that's it for me. I want to wish everyone the best of luck in the applications in the future.
Well, thank you. 我给你们讲2个 Matthew 的小故事啊。一个呢是 Matthew 英文 native speaker, right? With a bit of British accent. 他可以写中文。他不仅仅可以说中文，他可以写中文，他可以读中文，可以写中文啊。微信里面跟我写中文。我问他，我说 Matthew 你能写中文吗？他说我可以给你写中文，他可以写中文。另外一个小故事，我们在 Ivy Tour 的时候，我们在其中有一站，我忘记是哪一站了，就是我们在中间休息区啊，停在休息区，用卫生间加油的时候，我们其中有一个孩子那天好像吃什么东西吃的不太舒服，然后就在那个休息区外面就吐了，就直接吐在那个走道，吐在地上。那我们很多孩子看到这个情况，一般就躲得远一点了，因为那个味道也不太好，反正那个形状也不好看，就吐的东西。那我们团里面有2个男孩子，在那个地方帮助就在清洁那个东西，因为不能给留在那个路上，所以我们有2个学生，真的是用手啊，拿那个纸去把那东西给清理掉哈。那今天就很巧，这2个学生都在我们现场。一个是 Matthew， 一个就是 Matthew。所以他去做这种 truth and 这个 reconciliation， 我一点都不奇怪。所以在那个时候，他就表现出来的那种责任心，那种不怕脏，不怕辛苦哈。我们还有另外一个学生，当然是他的学弟，比他小一点点，Robert 在后面。Robert 也是 UCC 的 Robert， 哎 ，and Robert you are going to Yale in 2 years as well 他们两个正好，他们两个在现场帮助清理，所以 OK，anyway 我们今天所有的5位，我们的今年的录取的状元学生，我们的 speakers，他们都很精彩，每一个人都有他们自己非常 独特的、非常有他们自己特点的、非常丰富的这样的一个经验啊。那坦白讲，我坐在这里，我听他们讲，我都重新再学习一遍啊，很多很多东西都让我再次产生很多很多的感受。那我相信大家也今天也学到了很多东西，所以那就我们看看大家有没有什么问题问他们几个啊。Sylvia 已经因为有事情先离开了，其他几个人你们有没有什么问题？这个 Lydia、Andy、Matthew and believe Sarah is still online. So any questions？中文、英文都可以，好吗？我们线上的也可以有，如果你有问题的话可以问。我们争取在10分钟左右、15分钟左右结束。请。
我们线上问个问题。
问题是Sarah IB 很强，French 也很强，她上的哪个高中？这不用问 Sarah，我就可以回答你。她上的是 White Oak Secondary，这是 Oakville 的一个公立高中，是一个 IB 高中。对，它本身是一个 IB 的 program，但是 Sarah 其实她考了很多门 AP，基本上而且都是拿了5分，都拿了5分。对，问 Matthew，OK，来。教钢琴是吗？
这个我可以我用中文回答。
Yeah.
那暑假您说的是什么 tutor？就是钢琴吗？哦，in general，就是我 tutor 呢有几个方面，一个是钢琴，这个跟假期不会有冲突的，所以假期的时候我也会教，而且就是还有我在这个多伦多的图书馆有教小孩就是阅读，这也是有几年这个 volunteer，所以对这个跟假期不会有冲突的，假期的时候我也会继续的，对。
的那个 voice， 所以你别都可以。
对。
他要考那个 voice 10嘛，所以他要那个大家的，还有其他的，太优秀了，要向你学习。
谢谢。
我也想问一下 Marcel。
哦，好。
这是你的学弟。
哦。
我想问一下。
也是 UCC 啊 ？OK。
就是因为 UCC 是 IB 学校嘛，就是我注意到今天有好几个演讲嘉宾，大家都是有好几个都学了 IB， 同时学了 AP。那我的问题是说，是把所有的精力、更多的精力放在 IB 取得更好的成绩，还是说我不仅 IB 了，我还要申请一定量的 AP， 也同时出色？
我觉得如果是您在的学校是 IB 学校，比如说 UCC， 我觉得您就没有太大必要再去校外学 AP 的课程，因为 IB 已经够难了。我觉得您已经需要花够多的时间在学业上了，所以呢，如果您能把 IB 的成绩提上去的话，我觉得就足够了。对我来说，我没有学任何 AP 课程，我也没有做任何 AP 的测试，我觉得这没问题。但是如果您是不同的学校，比如说不是 IB 的学校，那您可以考虑用 AP 的课程来告诉大学，就是说我这个学业能力是能达到一个更高的水平的。
我补充一下哈，就是我知道这个问题很多家长都问过。那坦白讲，我们有一些同行，就是说我们不说名字了，其他的这些institution，我知道他们有的时候在做讲座的时候，去告诉大家说，你即便是 IB 的学生，你也要学 AP。当然，有可能他想去推广他的 AP 课程，我们不管他的这个想法是什么。那我在很多地方我也跟大家讲过我的观点，那我认为我的观点是正确的。那我的观点跟刚才 Matthew 的观点是一模一样的。首先，第一点，你如果是 AP 的 student，你如果是 IB 的 student，你的学校是 IB， 像 UCC、像 White Oak 这样的学校，像 Branson Hall 这样的学校，你不需要 AP。但只有在2种情况下，你可能需要 AP。一种情况下是说，你在某一个课程，你想要学，但是你的学校不提供，因为尤其我们的一些公校，它不是所有的课程都开的，它有些课程它不开，就是你的 IB program 它没有开。我举个例子，你比如说，我只是说就举个例子啊，你的数学非常好。但是你这个学校不提供 IB 的 high level 数学，只有 standard level 的数学。那这个时候你可能需要一个更强的 AP， 比如说 AP Calculus BC 来补强你对数学方面的这种 这种热爱啊，这是第一种情况。还有一种情况就是说，你在某一个领域你非常非常有 passion。举个例子，比如说历史 （U.S. history） 或者是 World history，但你的学校不开这个课，那你也通过 AP 来补强一下你在这个方面的兴趣，好吗？只有这两种情况，我认为 IB 的学生需要 AP，其他情况下不需要。OK，我们今天实际上 Matthew 没有 take AP，Andy
我提
好像也没有，
好吗？
对不对？
我们线上请这个问
You
题
took
没有
one，这是 OK。
？Hello，
所以实
Hello，
际上是你是不需要，好吗？这样，我们
我
线上的问题呢，我们
啊，
先把线上问题快速的过一下，然后我们
好
线下可以留时间，我们多聊一会儿，好不好？我们把线上问题过完了，我们把线上这个给它先 wrap up，然后我们线下可以多聊，好吧？关上门之后可以聊，什么都行啊。好，来，
我可以先问题吗？线上的。
Matthew 为什么中文学这么好？为什么中文学这么好？
我中文不是学的，我在中国待到3年级结束，所以就是，然后在家也跟爸妈一直说中文，所以对。
对。然后几年级开始考 AP 合适？我给大家一个建议了。通常来讲，我认为9年级了，就是如果你不是 IB 的学生，那有的人问我说要考多少门 AP，那坦白讲，我跟你们讲，我有学生考过19门 AP，一个美国学生，他最后他本来想去耶鲁，但没有录到，后来去的 UPenn 哈，那也很厉害。那我也有学生考4门 AP，那也录到了 Harvard 也有哈，所以我觉得没有绝对的一个数字，但通常来讲，我建议我说的不是 IB 学生，通常来讲我建议7到8门。那7到8门的话，你希望把它分散在3年，就是9、10、11 3个年级，因为12年级没用了，12年级申请都结束了。所以9年级考2门，10年级考2门，11年级考2门，考3门，大概223就是7嘛，那233就是8，好不好？但一般我建议从9年级开始，因为你不希望把所有的那个工作量都拖到10、11年级，你那个压力会很大。下面一个问题 for Sarah，你是 IB 学生，为什么考这么多 AP？其中有一些还和你的 IB 重复，能否说一下你是怎么考虑的？and Matthew，你认为为什么耶鲁选择了你？What makes you stand out？你应该反过来说，为什么 Matthew 选择了耶鲁？Okay，Sarah，are you still online？
Yeah, I can answer the question. So mostly when I was taking APs, I tried to take courses that my school didn't offer or that I thought would supplement my courses in some way. So for instance, the reason why I took French and macroeconomics. So French, I knew I was gonna end up taking SL French. So my French is I would say pretty good, but standard level is the easier French course, so to speak. So I wanted to take AP French to kind of just show that my French is still very good, right? Even though I didn't take HL French in high school. And for macroeconomics specifically, so obviously when I was in grade 9, I've never taken any AP courses before. So I wanted to choose something that, I could ease the transition into a little bit more instead of starting off with AP statistics. And then it ended up being very useful, at least because when I took IB econ in grade 11, a lot of the concepts are very similar. And I think that helped me also get a 7 in IB econ. So that's kind of the one thing I would say. And then for my later courses, so I took a lot of history courses and politics related courses for AP because my school's IB program doesn't offer any global politics or history courses, but as someone who obviously was applying for more humanities related programs, that was very important for me. And I didn't end up taking it, but last year I was also supposed to, and I signed up and I paid to take AP Calculus BC. I didn't end up taking it because Team Canada tryouts were on the same day. But for instance, I wanted to take that AP because I thought my math ability was enough, but I took SL Math for IB. So that's kind of my reasoning.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Matthew, why you think Yale chose you?
Okay, I'll do this in English, I think. But I think the main 2 reasons. Number 1 is Yale looks for students who care about something that's bigger than themselves. And I think that I was able to show that with my involvements with Jerusalem Reconciliation. I'm a Chinese kid, I'm a Chinese immigrant who cares about indigenous peoples, who like there's no apparent connection between the two. But I was able to show that, you know, I genuinely cared for this community and wanted to do things for them. Number two is just the fact that I was really, truly passionate about the things I was doing. I was really good at conveying how I didn't do anything for the sake of it. And I loved the things I did, and there was a light in my eyes when I did them. And that I think Yale could see that I would continue with these passions next year. Yeah.
Good, thank you. And this is for Lydia. Are you a IB student? And does she take APs? And what about your SAT scores?
No, I'm not an IB student. BSS offers a bunch of like AP courses, and I took 11 APs in total, and my SAT was a 1530. Thank you.
Yeah, BSS is an AP school. So just for your information, the people consider the top 3 all-girls school in Toronto: BSS, Branson Hall, and Havergal. 2 of them are AP schools. BSN and Havergal, and Branson Hall is an IB school. Okay, yeah. All right. IB 学生需要考 SAT 吗？几年级考比较合适 ？OK， 这不用问别人，问我就好。所有的学生都要考 SAT 啊 ，SAT 跟你是 IB 和 AP 没有关系，它是一个美国高考，美国本科录取入学考试，好吧？它跟你的你是考 AP， 你考 IB， 你考 OSSD 没有关系啊。SAT 是录取入学考试，当然 SAT 或 ACT 两个都可以，你可以考 SAT， 也考 ACT， 这两个是一样。OK， 那这两个跟 AP 跟 IB 没有关系啊。几年级考？10年级、11年级，我觉得基本上是这样了哈。9年级太早了，但是大概我觉得可能 majority takes SAT in grade 11啊，11年级可能会多一些啊。当然，如果你的学习比较学有余力的话，你10年级可以考一下，好吧？啊，10年级可以考一下。然后Sarah 有没有12年级选 Science 的课？讲一讲和 Warden 招生官练习的事儿。他找到你还是你找到他？5个 awards 如何安排的？哇，这家长好多问题。刚才我问 Sylvia 好像就是他问了好多问题。5个 award 如何在 Common App 里安排的？大部分都是debate奖项，不是啊，我可以告诉你，不是大部分都是debate奖项。你不可能把一个领域里面的所有的奖项全部放在你的5个 awards 里，好吧？这是不，你也不应该这样做。其实刚才 Andy 有讲到这个事情，即便你的debate的成绩非常好，你也不希望把你所有的 award 全部变成debate awards，你需要 diversify。大概可能里面最多，我认为5个里面最多2个，最多2个。甚至可能就1个，你就找一个你最突出的一个奖放在里面就好，但最多2个，你不能5个里面占到3个4个，就一个项目里面占到3个4个，这个不符合比例原则，好吗？在学校里面哪里学的 French 还是 French IB？OK， 这个 Sarah 交给你来说好吗？
Okay, I'll start from the beginning then. So I didn't do any science courses in grade 12. I took SL biology in IB. And for those of you that aren't really familiar with IB, it's 2 semesters of work for one SL course. So I got a grade 11 and a grade 12 credit for biology. And similarly for math, I got my advanced functions and calculus credits. But I didn't take the course itself during grade 12. So technically I did a grade 12 science for one semester, but it wasn't in grade 12. For speaking with my admissions officer, so my admissions officer sent me a little note after I got in. And I also had an opportunity to speak briefly with her at the actual visiting day, because at least for Huntsman, they take you to look at the dorms where you're living. And I chatted a bit with her during that process. And it wasn't very, very useful, I'd say. She definitely talked to me a little bit about debate. We talked a little bit about where everyone else is coming from. So for Huntsman, at least, usually they take around half ED, early yeah, sorry, early decision. So that's, I guess, the most useful thing that came out of it. For my Common App awards, like, yeah, you definitely shouldn't put like all 5 of your awards to be one thing. So for me, debate I still have more awards for debate. So maybe in retrospect, I should have diversified a little. But for my 5 awards that I put is I actually put like Team Canada as an award. Like it was in my award section, and I was like selected to be one of the 5 people representing Canada at like the World Schools Debating Championships this year. So that's what I put as an award. I put this like American like IPPF. It's called like the International Public Policy Forum. It's like an American PF tournament, but like they know it more. So I decided to put that as a second award. I also put French national champions for debate. And then I put like Princeton Maluyan for like the best delegate to have a MUN award. And then I put like a community center like immigrant volunteering award. So that's kind of like my 5 awards. And then sorry, my Chinese is not as good as like the other person's. Like what was the last 2 questions? I kind of forgot. Oh, sorry, it was French. So for French, like I did French immersion before like high school. So and during elementary school, it means like half of your day, half of your subjects are in French. So I think that definitely helped a lot. And then I did like private tutoring. I got private tutoring for French throughout high school. So that's kind of my experience with French. Yeah.
如果学校有爱，如果学校有 IB，但是学生的目标专业是工程，但是只有standard level 物理，是不是要校外去修 high level 物理？然后规划4年级的暑假。Andy, you wanna take this one? So the question is, if you are IB students, you wanna pursue a engineering major, but your school only offers standard level physics. Would you take a high level physics outside of your school? And how do you arrange your 4 years summer, 4 years high school summer? Can you take that one?
Oh yeah. I think for physics, standard level physics isn't like terrible. Like it's pretty good. I think it covers a lot of content. If you want, you can take the APs as well, but they'll like cross over quite a lot. There's other HL sciences that is good for engineering. So like a lot of people from my school, they also took HL chemistry to like supplement for like the physics as well. But I don't think there's a need to take the IB exam again because you can like take them outside of school, but like I don't think it's worth it outside of your own diploma. So yeah, for engineering, because I think physics and then like I know a lot of people from my school because we don't have HL physics at our school either. It's like SL physics and then HL chemistry, like it's fine. And HL chemistry and HL physics together, it's like a pretty brutal course load, so it's like pretty hard.
如果我因为他这个问题我不知道他指的校外 HL 指的是什么哈？那我跟你讲一下 IB， 你是一定它跟 AP 不一样 ，AP 你是可以它是一个比较开放的结构，所以你可以在你校内修，你可以在校外修，你可以在 LinkedKey 修，你也可以自学都可以。当然 IB 不可以 ，IB 你一定要在 IB 的学校才可以，对不对？所以你说我 outside 在校外 IB， 我不知道你校外指什么。但如果你指的是我自己的学校之外的另外一个那种，比如说 international school 那种的，一般我是肯定不建议我肯定不建议。但是我觉得 Andy 的刚才的建议，我觉得是可以考虑。就如果你自己将来要学工程，但是你的学校又不提供这个 high level 的 physics， 你可以通过一个 AP 的 physics 来补因为 AP physics 其实蛮难，AP physics 好多 ，AP physics one、physics C 里面还分力学和电磁学你可以通过 AP 来补，好吗 ？OK， Matthew, really quickly, what's your major at Yale? Why you chose this major?
Okay. My major was anthropology for Yale, and I chose this because anthropology is 人类学, and I chose this because the focus of this major, the focus of anthropology, just coincided with the types of research I was already doing in terms of truth and reconciliation. It was looking at how cultures evolve, how cultures interact with the environment around them. And for that, for me, it was how indigenous communities interacted with government policies, interacted with land treaties, and things like that. So I just found this major that happened to, be in the same area of focus as what I was already interested in. So that's why I chose it.
然后这个问题是这些优秀的学生是早录取还是 regular 录取都有哈。我们这几位学生，他们有早录取的，像 Matthew 的耶鲁是早录取的，但他的 Princeton 和 Stanford 就是 regular 录取的。其他几位也是一样，有早录取，有常规录取，都不太一样。So last two questions or last one. For Lydia, how did you start your nonprofit and publish your papers?
So I'll answer the first question and then I'll move on to the second one. So starting my nonprofit, I feel like I kind of touched on this on my presentation, but again, it's like very personal for me because I grew up in a caregiver family for my grandmother, and so I was already like very familiar with dementia, and it was always like a not I like a passion project for me to start a nonprofit and also work on spreading awareness and fundraising for dementia. And I actually took a Belize trip last year where we went into a Belizean community and then we administered different healthcare services. Like, for example, we took the blood pressure, measured the blood glucose, and that really introduced me to public health. But also, we went to a senior retirement home in Belize, and it was filled with seniors with dementia, different types of dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and that kind of piqued me in realizing that in different communities there's like a scarce like interest in helping and spreading awareness for this, and that's how I started my nonprofit. And more logistically, it was more of reaching out to people that I know first and asking them if they're interested in joining a nonprofit for XYZ cause, and that was how it started. And how I published my papers, I published two papers. The first one was in grade 9 or 10, and that was with Harvard, and it was like through their system. And the second paper was published through me researching for published journals for high schoolers. And the one that I published is on ResearchGate right now, and that was more like researching for these opportunities and also like looking for them. And I'd say that it is very hard because most of the published paper websites are for US citizens only, especially for like high schoolers. But there's definitely some like ResearchGate, Scholarly Review. Those are all very renowned journals where they can publish papers. Yeah. And
Okay, so last question from online. 小孩子法语不太好，学 AP program，如果考美国学校法语不好，会不会有很大影响？怎样增加录取概率？哈，我来说一下吧。美国的学校一般是这样，本科来讲呢，它有几个 requirement，那其中一个 requirement 就叫 one language in second language。什么意思？就是你在你的第二语言当中，我们认为第一语言是英文啊，第一语言是英文。你的第二语言当中，你需要一个语言，你不要这个4年高中学好几个，什么9年级学个法语，10年级学个西班牙语，11年级又跑去学个韩语，那个不叫 one language，所以是一个 language throughout the high school。那这个 one language 可以是法语，可以是其他的。所以如果你认为你的法语不够强的话，那你可以换到其他的语种。比如说你换去西班牙语，你换去什么德语之类的都可以，好吗？那通常来讲，我觉得 Matthew 讲的一个很重要。其实我们今年从去年开始，我们注意到这个趋势，就是你的在校成绩在这个里面所占的权重和重要性变得越来越重要。那这个也合理，因为对于你们来说，对于学生来说，你最重要的本职工作是学习嘛，所以你的学习成绩。其实，即便我们刚才说美国的权重是50-50，记不记得刚开始我讲的是50-50？其实这个左手的权重在增加，这个我们从去年开始就注意到这个情况啊。所以你看到刚才 Matthew 也提到这个事情。所以如果你的课内的这些课程当中有一些弱项和短板的话，我强烈建议你要把它补强，好吗 ？OK， 不管是法语还是你继续选西班牙语，还是选什么其他语言啊，我建议你一定要把它补强，因为你的本职工作。是你的课内成绩，好不好？那不好意思，因为时间的关系，我们的线上还有几个问题，我们没有办法完全都答完啊。这个问题那个麻烦钟老师给记一下， 我回头我回答你们，好不好？这因为我们这些学生情况我都了解，我回头我可以回答你们。也欢迎大家，之后你再有其他问题，你再联系我们，email 也好，电话也好，什么微信也好，等等等等等等啊，你都可以联系我们。然后我跟大家讲2个事情啊，你们还有时间给你们问问题啊。我们这个线上我们有优惠啊，不，线下有优惠，来现场不能让你们白来，汽油费不能白花哈。我们还有时间给线下的哈。那我们关掉线上之前呢，我有2个事情给大家通知一下啊。一个呢是你们可能知道，去年我们跟多大的一个教授叫 Tony Wang，我们一起组织了一个叫 Social Research Project。我不知道你们有多少人知道这个事情哈，那是一个非常大的一个社调科研项目。那个当然，我们的调查的这个方向是青少年的心理健康问题，取得了非常大的成功。然后我们最后做出了一个 report，然后马上这个 report 要 publish 出去啊。那今年我们会同样还是 Tony Wang 教授但是我们会换另外一个 project， 这个 project 是跟 AI 相关。就是叫 Generation A， 就是伴随着 AI 长大的这一代人，这一代人大概现在年龄在10岁到16、17岁左右，这个年龄段的学生，其实包括你们可能都是属于 Generation A。AI 对你们的学习、生活和未来的影响是什么？这个是我们的 project 要调研的题目，好吗？这个 project 会在星期3 5月28号，我们万锦开幕的时候会宣布。我们也这个欢迎所有的我们的学生来申请，主要是高中生哈。当然你们几位已经毕业了，欢迎你们回来做volunteer帮助我们。欢迎所有的现在的高中生来申请这个新的这个 research program， 好吗？同样还是Tony王教授，他会有training 有讲课，然后我们有整个的 research， 这是第一件事情。第二件事情，我会在6月7号跟6月14号也在万锦，我会有2个讲座，一个是跟私校申请有关的，另外一个是跟 extracurricular 有关的。那今天其实我听到很多大家的问题，包括有人刚才这个微信我说，大家很多人很关心这个文书到底应该是怎么做啊？那我可能也会讲一下文书，好吗？6月7号到14号，然后这是我们接下来的几个活动。那我们就这样，然后这个最后一件事情啊，其实我今天有一个蛮大的一个感受，就是刚才 Matthew 讲了一个东西，他说，如果一个知识你是在教室里面第一次学到，说明你已经落后。你们有没有注意到这句话？坦白讲，我第一次看到这句话，但是他那个结论我们早就知道，结论是 you have to learn ahead， 就你一定要早学，一定要提前学啊。所以暑期其实是很重要的，暑期是很重要的，因为暑期是你这种 get ahead 最重要的一个时间，其他时间你没有。你说我秋季和春季你没有什么太多时间去做这种预学，好吗？所以我最后一句话给我们这个 wrap up 线上之前啊，就是大家一定要把暑期充分利用好，好吗？给大家一个建议，一定要把暑期充分利用好。OK， 那我们就线上部分我们就先这样，好吗？谢谢线上，我们把 Zoom 关掉哈，谢谢。来，我们。